Welcome to episode number 99 of Shockwaves. Wow. This is almost a landmark.
We're almost
99.
there.
99,
That's pretty crazy.
baby. Yeah.
99.
I posted that old Killer POV Bloodcast crossover picture this weekend
I was
to get us
so
ready.
pregnant in that picture.
Yep.
It was below the table,
So
but I
was
just
I.
looked at my face and I was like, I am so pregnant there.
With anticipation of this day.
Of this.
Many
And a lot
years
of
what is
later.
to come.
A lot of people said they missed the beer. That
I know.
there's a lot less
if
beer
the
these days.
drive
There
to
is.
the Blumhouse office wasn't as drastic as
But
Geek Nation.
I'm going to call it now. We're going to have beer at that episode.
For
100, I'm going to bring some beer.
Great.
Cool.
Okay.
Maybe we should have
And
our friends
something
at
for
Phantom
you.
Carriage bring us
Hey,
Yeah.
there
Oh,
we go.
hey, that's
Well,
a
we
good
only have
plan.
2 days to organize this.
We will
I know,
take-
guys.
By all means,
we don't
will
have
take
long.
sponsorships left or right. Give
Yes.
us the
But
free beer.
we get tons of requests for drunken debates. And I'm going to talk about how when I was at Phoenix last weekend, I was on a panel for bold horror statements, and it made me miss the drunken debates, guys.
First of all,
So-
Becca, you don't drink during
I know,
any of
but
them.
I
You've never
did during
drank
the
with us.
drunken debates. I drank a ton of Jack
There might have
Daniels
been
during
one.
that
Okay,
one.
fair
I do
enough.
like that there was a panel called, what was it?
Bold horror statements.
Bold horror statements.
I'll talk about it.
That's
in
our
a
entire
second.
show.
It's like hot takes.
All right, cast of characters. I'm Rob Galluzzo. This is Elric Kane sitting
Howdy.
next to me. Hi. Ryan Turek is with us.
Hi.
And Rebekah McKendry.
Hello.
So
See
we're
how
all
efficient
here.
we've gotten in
Yeah, but-
99 episodes? That's just like we're on it now.
Yeah, we're on top of it. Lots to talk about. Oh, God, where do we begin?
Well, I'll
Who's
jump
got
in.
stuff to plug?
I'll jump in with Phoenix Comic Con just because I
Sure.
was just there and I just talked about it. So I was at, it's no longer called Phoenix Comic Con because guess what, guys? San Diego Comic Con sued everybody.
Oh.
So then it became Phoenix Comic Fest.
Fest
yeah.
doesn't sound as
I know, and they're changing it to Phoenix Comic Fusion next year. So regardless, I was at a really big fucking convention in Phoenix that I've done for the past several years, and I absolutely love this show.
So Comic-Con, like trademarked the word
Comic-Con, which is crazy because I was
bunch
like,
of douchebags.
it's literally the word convention. They like trademark con and sued everybody. So fine. So everybody has to change their name and kowtow to them. But that said, so I was at what is currently Phoenix Comic Fest, soon to become Fusion. Really, really big show in Phoenix, and it's awesome, and they have really good horror panels, and it was just an amazing weekend to begin with. So yeah, I was on a lot of panels, but the one that I had the most fun with by far was Bold Horror Statements, which was
Bold horror
What are some of them? Give it-
statements.
so
Give
one
us
of
a
them
couple big
was
ones.
Zelda is the scariest monster ever in cinematic history
Okay.
from Pet
Exclamation
Cemetery.
point.
I mean, not true, but scary. She is scary.
One of mine was that Exorcist 3 is scarier than the original Exorcist.
Also a cool statement, not true.
Oh, come on.
Could I have come to this panel to be the naysayer?
Okay. I'll do.
amazing.
And then, so what we had is you would say your statement, and then you would have like a couple of minutes to say why you believe this, and then the audience would have to cheer or boo.
Oh, I like that. That's actually
so
fun.
the audience had to decide whether you were like completely full of it. So the audience, I got the Exorcist 3 one. Like people were in with me on the Exorcist 3. The one that I lost him was Paris Hilton does not suck in horror films.
House of Wax. She's
House
awesome.
of Wax, I know. Repo the Genetic Opera, and I don't hate 9 Lives either. Those are the 3 horror films she's
I haven't
done.
even seen that. No,
I
you
don't
got
hate
booed.
it.
Becca just got booed. Thumbs down.
I just scraped 9 lives off my heel. I mean, like, you were.
don't
How dare you
hate it.
tarnish episode 99
I
with some
But,
rando
no, that
direct-to-video
said,
movie?
9 Lives is not great. I don't hate it, but it's not great. But seriously, like House of Wax and her performance
Wax
in
is
Repo
good.
the Genetic Opera, in both she plays the person that you hate and you want to die, and she's really good at that. So that was one of my bold statements. So literally there was 3 of us, and we each brought like 6 bold horror statements to the table, which was a lot of fun. And then there was also, and I didn't even know this was a thing, there was a convention comedy show where they bring in comedians who have like specific genres or topics that they focus on. So like one person just focused on comic books, and a guy who comes to horror trivia with us, Kyle Clark, and his was so niche about the horror genre. It was just amazing. So that was definitely one of my highlights as well. I met a ton of Shockwaves listeners. So it was great seeing everybody there. Everyone wanted to touch Elric's face, so be prepared for that when
They're
we go
lost,
back
my
to Mad
friend.
Monster. And thank you, Monty and AJ, for just a generally awesome weekend.
Wow.
Well, sounds like a blast.
Man,
It
you're
was.
a jet setter.
Bold horror statement.
Statement.
I've got one. A bold horror statement. You ready?
I'm ready.
You're going to love it. Zombie 5 is better than Zombie 4. Hurrah!
Where did you watch Zombie 5?
Okay, so one of the two Super Dark Times writer, Luke Petrowski, I was at his house yesterday for a barbecue, looked on his shelf, and he had a DVD box set that was Zombie 3, 4, and 5.
I have that too. I totally have Zombie 5.
And it's a great
I
copy.
forgot I had it.
Is that the bird
It's
one?
killing birds. And here's
Yeah.
the fun part. I was kind of like, I'm just doing this because it's opportunistic and I wanted to complete this thing that I had gunned myself into. And I really didn't think 4 was very interesting at all and thought it was quite flat. 5 is not a good movie, but it is really close to being like a Fulci film. That's what's interesting about it. It really feels like a Fulci film. Some of the zombie moments, which are kind of tacked on to the end, feel like it was shot not as a part of the saga.
Yeah.
It was shot just as a regular film. It was meant to be directed by Michel Sauvé right after Stage Fright. He pulled out to do The Church. Then I think Bob was meant to do it. He pulled out. And so they went with the Stage Fright. I guess it was the assistant director.
It pains me that Michelle Suave was going to follow up Stage Fright with Zombie 5.
Well, it wasn't Zombie 5. I don't know what it was called. But it was produced and shot. This is quality. Joe D'Amato was the cinematographer and producer of this movie.
So is it neither porn nor horror, but somehow both?
It's kind of but no, this isn't shot in New Orleans. So it's the first American shot zombie film in that series besides Fulci's. So that's cool. They come back, so it's all shot in New Orleans. But I will say, I think Ryan would actually, the first 5 minutes is like The Prowler. It opens like a guy comes back from the war to find out his wife is in bed with another guy. So he like murders them, and then other people come with the baby and he murders everyone except the baby. But it's shot all really like actually a good slasher film.
Wow.
But the crazy thing is the famous like Westerns actor, Robert Vaughn, who's like a really big actor. He is in this movie and he plays that character, the killer grown up and blind with bad, bleeding eyes. And it's really strange. But here's the fun part. There's nothing with birds in this movie. I mean, nothing with birds. The birds are in an opening scene where a guy slashes someone. The birds are watching. There are no killing birds in this movie. I was expecting it to be like part 3.
Yeah, even the cover has a giant
Let me put it this way.
bird
There is no
pecking him
virus. There is no. Okay, they peck the killer's eyes out at the start in the opening scene. That's it. And
Wow.
so this is not so. Those coming in for the bird horror are going to be sorely disappointed. Those coming in going, this is going to be the shittiest movie ever because 4 was so stupid, are going to be pleasantly surprised like I was.
Because that's what was pulling people to Zombie 5 was the intent of bird horror.
I think so. I think it could have been. There's lots of fogging of the lens. This is one of those horror periods where you're like, oh my God, where do you even find this foggy a lens? But no, but the problem is there's long stretches where nothing. It's like these kids go down to find some scientist. They are at a house. It's more of a, to be honest, let me put it this way. This film would make more sense as an Amityville sequel. You could have just plugged and played as just called it Amityville whatever, and it would have probably made more sense than being necessarily a zombie sequel. And at a certain point, zombies start coming, but you never find out who they were, or why. And there's none of that military stuff, none of that voodoo stuff.
None of that.
So it's radically different.
Nonsense.
Interesting.
I think this film actually would, if you're going to watch them in order, I'd put it actually after 2, like Fulci's Zombie. I think it would feel the most like that, but it's not set there. I genuinely kind of liked it.
Your order to watch them is Zombie, then this one.
It might be, yeah, and then go to the 2 island ones, just because the island ones are kind of together a pair. Okay. But like for anyone who can get the box set, I think if you're completing this, I definitely liked it more than 4, and because 4 is just too camp for me. This is not camp. That's the other thing. This is kind of straight horror, and it is boring at times. It's a bunch of teens hanging out at a house, but the actual zombie scenes literally look like the zombies from House by the Cemetery and things like that. When they're really old-looking faces.
Oatmeal.
And oatmeal. And there's a scene where they
and
powdery,
Gorilla Glue.
yeah.
But I love that. I find that to be what I think of as a creepy zombie.
Now-
They're unnerving.
Is Severin doing part 5 on Blue?
I think Rob tried to ask them about that.
I mentioned it to David Gregory. He's like, I don't know about that. I'm like, come on, you're going to do 3 and 4, but you're not going to do 5?
Yeah, I want to get
all
on
the
his case.
questionable things you put out.
I mean, I think this one's better, so I'd be curious to hear why he doesn't maybe like this one.
Yeah.
But there's an interview on the extras with Robert Vaughn, this classy actor talking about this movie. And you're like, this is so weird.
Robert Vaughn does a lot of weird career choices.
Probably towards the end.
Yeah.
But he's in like Magnificent 7 and stuff, so it's kind of crazy. But I thought it was fun, man. I got to say, I kind of enjoyed it.
Excellent. Yeah, I do have this DVD, and you can find it on Amazon. But yeah, it'd be nice if somebody does.
The bar was
Severin,
low.
Come on.
Yeah, Severin has to kind of
You
come
have
through
to.
for us. Don't leave us hanging.
Can I throw out a bold horror statement?
2 in 1 episode.
Statements.
Holy crap.
I have seen the greatest film about a demon snake that has a telepathic link to Oliver Reed ever.
Oh my gosh.
Is Klaus in
That
there?
film
This
is
is
called
Klaus.
Spasms.
Spasms.
From 1983. No, not Venom.
Wow, so he's got some experience with.
But
with
Spasms
snakes.
is good too because it's got a lot of like crazy overlay effect is how
Yeah.
they do most of the special effects in it.
But let me tell you, Spasms is a much more enjoyable film than Venom.
Yeah, Venom's
There's a lot more
Grizzly.
going for it. This film was directed by William Fruitt, who did Blue Monkey.
I love Blue Monkey.
Becca loves
part
herself
of
some
Canadian
Blue
No one.
Monkey.
I have
exploitation.
any of the three of you guys seen Blue Monkey?
No.
I've seen
Giant
other William Fruitt movies.
giant insects takes over a hospital ward, guys.
Yeah.
Or actually, I think it might be a plant, but it looks like an insect.
Knowing
Anyway, proceed.
Knowing that, let me tell you a little bit about Spasms. So Oliver Reed plays this rich dude that had an encounter with a demon serpent on a remote island, and he got bit by this thing, but he didn't die. He survived the attack. And several years later, he learned this. Apparently, through research, he discovered that the serpent surfaces on this island every several years. So he sent a crackerjack team of explorers to capture this beast and bring it back to the U.S. so he could face it one more time. So they succeed. A bunch of villagers die in the process. He brings the serpent back to the U.S. And it's like it's in a cage in some university where Peter Fonda is teaching ESP.
Why
and
do you
all this
lead with
kind
that?
of-
You had me with that.
because you lead with Oliver Reed,
Okay,
not Henry
all right.
Fonda.
Peter Fonda is smaller in the film, if I remember correctly.
What's that?
He's not in the
Oh
film.
no, I'm
nearly
sorry.
as
I'm
much.
sorry. It's Peter Fonda.
Yeah.
Peter Fonda. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm Henry Fonda. Whatever. Peter Fonda. So what happens is this satanic snake cult that comes into the first 45 minutes of the film and then doesn't really resurface at all through the rest of the movie. Accidentally sets this demon serpent free, and the demon serpent runs loose. And every time it attacks people, Oliver Reed, because he's got a telepathic link to it, he could see the deaths. And so one by one, the serpent starts taking people out, and it bites people, and then you get these glorious bladder effects occur where the skin starts to split, and then your skin gets all frayed, and then you die violently.
It's like the eye with a snake.
It is. It's a pretty very special. It's a very special film. Guys.
That sounds better than Zombie 5. I'm now questioning my bold statements.
So what you get from this is you get a lot of POV of the demon serpent, which is usually in a blue hue. You get co-ed deaths. There's a little bit of an exploitation element to this film. You get a scene in which the serpent snakes its way through a park full of people, and you don't know if it's going to kill them or not. And then you get a hasty third act in which Oliver Reed takes on the demon serpent with Peter Fonda. And
I remember a giant bonfire for some reason.
That's at the very beginning of the film.
Okay.
It's the very beginning of the film. But this is a film that I remember seeing on the cover of Fangoria because it had one of the split dudes, with his skin all bloated and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that must be a movie about people getting a disease and they just explode. No, it's about a demon serpent. Code Red put out the Blu-ray. Looks very beautiful.
Nice.
Tangerine Dream did a portion of the score.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting. I wonder if it was repurposed.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, check out Spasms. It's incredibly special. I think it's a great Monster Hunt movie.
Sound guy should be really losing it at you right now. Every time you make a bold statement, your hand's smashing on
Bold
the desk.
horror
just like
statements.
People hear that.
But
Review.
our sound guy's
It's
totally
special.
asleep. He's just he's cut out. He's out of it.
Rob, you got any?
whatever.
Rob, you got any bold
Bold
horror?
horror
There we go.
statements.
That cover is
Spasms.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking it up
Spasms.
on
Yeah.
RoninFlix.com is where you can get your Code
Which
Red
is part of-
stuff.
Yes.
I
a good
did
film.
have a bold statement. My bold statement is, believe it or not, Ryan and I would encourage you to watch the longer version of Bloodhook and not the truncated, edited one that's on Amazon Prime and out there. Apparently,
Wait, you guys watched Bloodhook a second time just because the director's cut
No.
was too enticing?
No. I would not watch it again. But people have been reporting back to us that the version that's
Okay.
online is
The Amazon.
a truncated version. And I guess Troma put it out that way too. To me, I don't know if it would have the WTF factor had it not been as absurdly long as it was.
This might be a problem with Amazon because this happened when I showed Dick Don't Go in the House. And I was so excited to show it to him. He hadn't seen it. And it cut out all the nudity, her burning. None of it was in it. and it was a cut that Code Red had put up there, and it was like totally ruins the movie because it takes out the most sordid details.
Yeah.
So maybe there is an issue with some. I wish there was some sort of user guide to.
Well, that
Amazon.
could look if you're looking.
We need a nerd. We need a good nerd.
If you're looking to start a new horror site, it should be which version to watch.
Yeah.
Because you were telling me about Scalpel.
Yep, Blood Rage.
There's two
Blood Rage has different
of it.
versions. Yep.
So that it'd be good to navigate.
That's a good
Kathy's
site.
Curse. You're
Kathy's
probably
Curse.
better off with the shorter
Incoherent cut. Definitely
because
go
it's
with incoherent.
Yeah, exactly.
What would
So,
Brian Collins say?
Yeah.
I think he.
What's he know
He
about?
sides with the shorter cut. I
Yeah, no, he
believe,
does.
if
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
he does,
mistaken. That's my one of my bold statements. But the other one, in terms of things I've watched, is I finally caught up with something that has been kind of notorious for many years for many reasons that I just assumed I would probably dislike strongly. And my bold statement is, yes, I was correct. I very much dislike this movie, but it's still worth talking about, and that is the Poughkeepsie Tapes.
Somebody told me recently they dug it when they started. I still haven't seen it.
It's an ugly film.
Yeah, and I guess that's what it is. Well, first of all, it depends what kind of horror fan you are, because this was made way back in 2007. Kind of at the height of the found footage thing, or, they were just making so many different types of found footage movies.
It was also just coming off the torture porn.
Yeah,
era.
for the most part. And so it very much embodies, it's the found footage version reaction to that, which is basically, it's a serial killer. Basically, it's set up as a mock documentary about a serial killer who targets all different types of people, whether they be little girls or teenage girls or couples or whatever. It's just nasty stuff, like a Henry style killer. And so they found all his tapes, and so basically this is kind of a faux documentary where you watch some of his tapes back and that kind of stuff. And it's interestingly put together. It's the first film from the Dowdle brothers. And the reason it's so interesting is because and the special features are what really make the movie itself, because I'm sick of found footage, and quite frankly, I just don't want to watch women get tortured for long periods of time, which is a lot of what this movie is. But
it's about experiments for some reason, like crazy weird.
Nothing like that at all.
Montauk
Just a
kind of
guy
thing.
that kidnaps women and kills little girls, and it's just terrible shit that I'm like, why am I watching this?
Yeah.
And I was waiting for some sort of cathartic or maybe interesting kind of ending to it, and it's not. It's just a downer from start to finish. But it had all this attention when it was doing the festival circuit, and then it just disappeared. And so for years, this was kind of a bootleg title. It's like, oh, have you seen the Poughkeepsie? It's really fucked up. You have to see this movie. And so finally, Scream Factory got the rights and put it out last year on a Blu-ray. And the Dowdle brothers have gone on to do, they did The Quarantine, which is the remake, the very inferior remake of Wreck. And the one thing I do kind of dig that they did was Devil.
I like Devil a lot.
It was based on a story by M. Night Shyamalan, and he produced it, but they wrote and directed that feature, which I liked because it felt like a Twilight Zone, and it's
a tight little film,
like 65 minutes long or something. It's like ridiculously short, and so that's kind of cool. But I guess what's interesting is this in context. So I watched the interview with them on it, and what happened, and this is totally true, is they had a very successful screening at Tribeca.
I was at that screening.
You were at it.
I was at it. I saw Poughkeepsie Tapes at Tribeca Film Festival in 2000. I guess it was 2007. And the audience went nuts. And I've never been a big fan of the torture-y stuff, but found footage was just kind of coming onto its own at the time. And so it was really cutting edge. It was like something I'd never seen before at the time. I've since seen lots of versions of both of it. But yeah, it was like that particular screening, the audience was going nuts.
Yeah, and they had made it independently, like all on their own, low budget sort of deal. So it premieres at Tribeca. There's sold out screenings, huge bidding war. MGM buys the movie for a shit ton of money. And then while that's happening, before it even comes out, they get hired to do Quarantine on the basis of like, oh, there's all this press or whatever. Then they make the mistake, or it's not them. The way they explain it is actually really funny. Is they make the mistake, or MGM made the mistake of sending it to Button-Umathon, Ain't It Cool, in Austin, and presenting as if it was a real movie, a real documentary. And the audience turned on them just because they were trying to sell it as a real documentary. And one of them was there, and he explains on the special features, is like, MGM barred us from doing Q&As because they wanted to sort of sell it as a real thing. It's like we would have never like
it's like Cannibal Holocaust where they had to sign the writer.
We would have absolutely been like, oh no, obviously it's fictional, in the same way that Blair Witch was fictional, but they didn't really lead on to too much. But he's like, so it was even worse. He's like, I was sitting there and they turned like right away. And then at the end, the story was he was too scared to do the Q&A or whatever. He's like, no, I was legally not allowed to talk and take credit for the movie after. It's like, but they're like, but we were in the middle of making quarantine, so had they not gotten that gig, it would have completely destroyed their career right off the bat. But they were smart in that as soon as it got this bidding war and sold for a lot of money, they immediately set up their first studio project, and et cetera. And so the story behind it is more fascinating than anything. There are some creepy moments to it in general, but it's just a nasty movie that I just personally don't like at all.
Yeah.
But
what was the reason it was so difficult to see all these years? Did no one wanted to put it out? Was there a rights issue with putting it out?
No, there's no rights. Just MGM got cold feet, and nobody. They will never say this, but I hear it's because of how disastrous that Austin. They even think that it's because of how disastrously they turned. And I mean, they were planning a 2,000 theater rollout sort of big release. And I think even they were like, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, that's a lot of screens for a low budget movie. And then, to try to sell it to an audience is a real thing. And it's a little bit nastier than what would be considered a commercial big release.
At the time, it didn't feel that much nastier because this was right around Hostel 2 and
it's definitely
Saw
a
4 with
reflection
the
of that
autopsy.
time.
It was definitely, we were kind of at the height of really nasty shit happening.
And found footage would have been more exciting then, a little bit more.
A little bit. I guess at the time it would have been
pre-Devil Inside Me. Anything or Devil Inside, anything before that to me was the end of that run.
Yeah, this is definitely a product of its time, and now I'm not a big fan of it now, but if you're into found footage and just curious at what the fuss was about back then Poughkeepsie Tapes, Screen Factory put it out.
Nice. Okay, well, a number of people from the Shockwaves fan group online know how much I love Sion Sano, so I started getting all these messages about how I needed to watch his new miniseries on Amazon, which is called Tokyo Vampire Hotel.
That's on my queue. I want to see
it. It is fucking nuts. I love this. It is one of the best things I've seen in a long time, and I don't recommend this to everyone. It is ultra-violent, hyper-violent, literally opens with one of the greatest, most violent scenes I have seen in a long time. But if you watch a lot of Sion Sano, you kind of know what you're getting into to begin with. Amazing cinematography. I really have no clue what is going on. They set up the plot and then they kill a bunch of people and it's just glorious looking. There's, from what I can get, and I just finished the 4th episode, there are 2 different warring factions of vampires. One is the Dracula clan, and then the other one is the Coven clan. And they are warring back and forth. No, it's not Coven.
They actually say Coven?
It's
Coven
well,
like oven.
it's
Corvin.
It's Corvin. Thank you. I was like, there's an I in there somewhere. So there's 2 warring vampire families that are both kind of targeting this girl who has just turned 22nd, and there's something celestial with her birthday and why they're targeting her. And then there's also this guy who runs a hotel who keeps luring guests there so he can kill them. And he is establishing that the next day, and this is kind of leading up to it, that the next day is going to be the end of the world. And you don't really know how it's going to end. You just know that there's all this crazy shit going on with vampires and then this guy who owns a hotel who keeps killing people. I love this show. It is batshit crazy. Again, opening scene is just amazing. But Coldfish, Strange Circus, Tag, I have been with Sion Sano through all of his stuff so far, 100%. And this is just upped the ante. The cinematography is amazing in it.
What's the song you said it was on?
It is on streaming on Amazon Prime right now.
Yeah,
it is,
crazy.
I want to say 6 to 8 episodes. It's short. And you can feel that because it's definitely leading up to this end of the world thing, which is, it's kind of counting down hour by hour to it.
Yeah.
So,
Tokyo
Vampire Hotel
on Amazon Prime. Beautiful. What else you guys got?
I got a few.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I watched 1989's Dark Tower by Freddie Francis and Ken Wiederhorn, who who both took a pseudonym under the joint pseudonym of Ken Barnett.
Oh, weird.
And
I saw you posted VHS of this, but I've never even heard of it.
I bought it on VHS as part of the upcoming Slashback initiative, and it is such a drag.
Yeah, bummer.
And it's a bummer for a movie that begins pretty strong, which is the backdrop is Spain. There's this kind of giant high rise that had just been built. Jenny Agutter, from American Werewolf in London. She plays this architect who was married to another rich architect, and I guess he helped build this building with her, but he died in the process. And how he died under mysterious circumstances. And in the first 10 minutes, Jenny is giving these very wealthy businessmen a tour of the building, and then on their way out, the window washer falls to his death. And we cut to Michael Moriarty, who's an American.
That happens in the Beyond.
Yeah, and we meet Michael Moriarty's detective character, who is an American in Spain, who's on vacation, but he's called into duty for some weird reason. I don't know how. And on their way to the building, he's like, "How many deaths?" And he's like, 2. And he's like, 2 people fell. And he's like, "Well, no, the window washer and the guy he fell on." And it was one of the wealthy businessmen. I'm like, all right, we're off to a great start.
Yeah.
And then basically what you have is this yarn, the supernatural yarn about crazy supernatural things happening in this building, mysterious deaths, people dying in the elevator, people dying on, just through construction things. That was very eloquent, but construction-y things. For instance, you have one guy who's in an elevator and you have a lot of shots of people in elevators going down and staring off mysteriously at things. Then you never see what the reverse coverage is, and then they step off the elevator, and then something happens to them. In one instance, one guy just steps off the elevator, grabs a gun, and starts shooting everybody in the lobby. And Michael Moriarty is on the case to try to figure out what's going on. And the outcome is not surprising, but boy, is it...
Take its time to get there.
It takes its time to get there, but I have a sneaking suspicion for my colleagues who absolutely and mysteriously love Poltergeist 3.
Yeah. Yes.
It might get you off.
Poltergeist 3 has gag after gag after gag.
It is such good.
And so does the finale of Dark Tower. But
right.
boy, oh boy, this movie is a stinker.
Is Moriarty play piano in this or not?
Yeah.
That's usually my barometer of a good
I
movie.
do love Michael Moriarty playing piano.
Yeah.
If he's not scatting, I don't know.
The funny thing is both Michael and Jenny are doing their best. They really are doing their best to bring the best to the material.
They're pros.
There's a moment where you could see the door opens and it's Jenny's intro, and you could tell she's just being very actory. She's like, I'm in the moment. I'm gonna go through the scene, and it's just this nonsensical soap opera about what happened to her husband. Oh God, it was a fucking chore to get through this movie.
Wow.
But if you guys are interested, I don't think it exists on Blu-ray. I think it's something you have to find on VHS. But confirmed, there are 2 movies out there called Dark Tower, and they both suck.
Okay. He has closed his laptop with that, guys. He is done.
I'm gonna go get Graham. I'll be right back.
Okay, I was like, and Turek out. He's dropped the mic on that one.
Bold statement. If you're looking for a good documentary on John Carpenter, do not watch The Carpenter. Because instead of John Carpenter, you get Wings Hauser as a ghost working on construction on your house.
So it's not even a dark.
It's just called The Carpenter.
I didn't understand where your joke was going.
No, it was good, but it got there. This is one that somebody recommended me because of my love of Wings Hauser, and it's kind of like you got the setup of kind of like a softcore late night movie, but instead of porn or sex, you get Wings Hauser, which is similar, and the hair's cool. No, I actually really like Wings in this. He's good. He's always good, but it's really
this cover's
weird.
Amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it's a really crazy cover. I posted an alternate cover to that, which is actually amazing. And if it was that movie, it's him in a white suit coming out of smoke, and it looks amazing. But it just never has that scene. It fits into the House of Psychotic Woman. What is Kierla's book?
House of Psychotic Women.
It fits into that kind of model because it's about a woman who, from frame 1, is kind of being checked out of mental asylum, kind of let's scare Jessica to deathy. But the tone is never realistic or grounded, and I really hate the tone of this movie. And she's kind of she's out of it. Her husband's that cover.
That's a great image.
Yeah, the image on the other cover.
I want to see the cover.
Utterly amazing.
This is the white.
That's Wings Hauser in a white suit coming out of smoke.
But the actual cover.
Who doesn't want to watch that movie? But the actual cover is closer to what the movie is.
I remember that VHS now. Okay.
But it's cool because Wings is the ghost, and so basically there's a crew working on a house construction during the day.
Oh, okay, I know that one.
Yeah, that's the VHS cover that I remember.
Cover.
And then at night, the crew go away, and somebody's still working on the house. after hours, and the woman comes down and goes like, "Oh, you're still working here?" And it's Wingshauser in construction clothes, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to finish up." But of course, they realize they all think it's a scab, a student coming at night, and so that's kind of the drama of the movie, which is quite bad.
Somebody's doing the drywall after hours.
Wings kind of starts to try to seduce her, and he is really fun, and he's always kind of fun. But you're just watching this movie going, "No, this movie does not work as a horror film to me. It's just something about it." But let me follow straight on the heels of one that does.
Wait. There's one
excited.
release. There's one release that says The Carpenter. You'll be nailed to your seat.
You know, this
I just wasn't.
this really does sound like The Plumber, but where The Plumber really
That's exciting,
executes
because it's
really
grounded.
well.
It's grounded.
Yeah, it's
And
really good.
I think again, the woman's mind is never there, so she's never established to be like actually sane. So all of this makes sense to be crazy, and the conclusion, like he's actually seducing her, and it's very quick how they conclude this movie. So I can't. It is on Amazon streaming though. That's how I saw it.
Oh.
So it's free. You will not have to pay for this movie.
Are there multiple cuts? Do we need to have somebody watch all of them?
Longer cut?
We need a website that will direct us. But I did want to follow it up quickly because this one is super fun. I had seen a while back Ryan Rollins on his post say, "Oh, I love this movie." And I was like, "I've never even heard of this movie. Fuck, it's awesome. And I think you're going to love it." Welcome to Spring Break, a.k.a. Nightmare Beach.
Oh, I need to see that.
Umberto Lenzi.
Is that on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. I think I had to pay for it.
Hold on, I need to
But I think it was like
cover on
$5 and you get to own it. For an SD, it was one of those kind of ones.
this. Welcome to
But
Spring Break.
it has Michael Parks, who is just drunk from start to end. You can tell he's just not in control. John Saxon, who's great in it. It's Umberto Lenzi started the film, and then at a certain point, he just kept producing it, and he hired a different guy to direct.
Bring it.
No, this movie is the #1 movie to
That cover's
pair.
awesome,
Yeah,
right?
the cover.
Yeah, I'm
And there's
looking
another
at it right
poster
now.
where I look up the Italian poster. It's just the guy's visor with a woman scream
This
dying in it.
is awesome.
Yeah, look at that, Rob.
Yeah.
That's so freaking
Oh,
good.
wow.
It's a tight cover.
Nightmare
It
Beach
looks
is a
kinda
better
Amsterdam.
title.
Oh, yeah.
But the cool thing about this, I really love Italian films. You know, we always joke with pieces where you have a film shot in Italy where it pretends to be America. That's one thing. But I love when the Italians come to America. I love The Beyond because it's shot in New Orleans.
yeah.
This is shot in Florida, Spring Break. For real. This would
Wow.
make the best film to pair with Spring Breakers. Like, it would be such a fun double feature because they're both ridiculous. Like,
Does she
Spring
wear the
Break is insane.
headphones the whole time?
A lot of people do.
Because I'm kind of into that.
Get ready though. There's a gang of bikers in this movie. So keep in mind, this is made by an Italian. The gang of bikers they're called Demons, and the patch is the same as the logo of the movie.
No.
Yes, it's the
Wow.
yellow font, the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, it's like a reference to
Wow.
Demons. Super cool. Okay, so it opens with a guy about to be basically a biker. He's about to be put to death at the electric chair by Michael Parks and John Saxon, who has framed him. So the guy gets put to death. He gets electrocuted in the opening scene, and then a mystery guy looks like the Wraith, basically on a bike that has this little seat at the back of the bike, and he goes to people, he puts them on the back of the seat, and then he pushes a button, and they get electrocuted from his bike.
Keep it going,
And this
Alec.
is happening.
I'm in.
This is
I'm in.
happening during Spring Break in Florida. Then your central characters come in. This is where it gets a little goofier, right? Because up to this point, the central character is a guy who threw an interception pass for Florida State and lost the entire pro whatever the Florida college football thing. So he's down on his luck. His friends gives him about 30 rubbers and says, "You better have used all of these by the end of the week." And he's kind of depressed. And he doesn't want to use a rubber. He doesn't even want to have sex. He's kind of bummed, but he starts flirting with this beautiful girl who I think's from Inferno. She's definitely from an Argento, and they have a little thing going on. And basically, it starts to become them trying to figure out: is this a ghost? Is this like the guy come back from the dead? Michael Parks seems to think it might be. He's drinking a lot. There's a crazy priest character trying to track it down. John Saxon's not exactly like this is one of the few John Saxon kind of almost like a bad. He's a cop, but he's also kind of a corrupt cop.
Yep.
This is a really fun movie. Probably one of my most fun kind of picks of lately. Even though it's not a great movie, but it's a really fun, crazy.
I gotta find this.
slasher.
This is Welcome to Spring Break, and your last two picks are from 1988.
Oh, weird.
Whereas Dark Tower is 89. So I see
89.
we're in a certain.
Well, I'm
time.
going to jump in then with a 1988 movie.
Holy
Okay.
smokes!
Okay, I watched Remote Control.
Oh yeah, Lieberman.
Yeah, Jeff
Oh, yeah,
Lieberman.
yeah.
So I had this is only available on VHS, to the best of my knowledge. And I
No,
looked on
No, he put out a
from his
Blu-ray.
website. He has it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which he sold at Dead Right Horror Trivia.
Okay, which I think is how I ended
Bekah
up
wasn't there.
with it. Because I have a DVD copy that I was like, I don't know how I got this, but
Rebekah
it doesn't
was on
look
that Blue
legit.
Sunshine.
I was apparently, I
She
was there
tripping
for
on the Blue
that.
Sunshine.
But I have a copy, and I was like, I don't know how I got this, but I've never
I still haven't seen
it.
this one. Weirdly enough, it's the only one of his. I haven't
It
seen.
is so so fun. It is definitely 1980s fun. It is literally about Kevin Dillon,
his hair,
and he's working in a video store, and Jennifer Tilly is there. And one day she sends out this. They can't find the copy of the movie that the person asked for, and so she's like, "Take this instead." And they send out this movie, and then they realize that this movie, which is kind of like a 1950s sci-fi flick, is actually brainwashing people and making them go on murderous rampages. So it's like Blue Sunshine without the acid in a videotape instead. And the videotape was created by aliens to take over the world. And so then the aliens are going to come after enough people go crazy and murder each other.
Is that a spoiler or not a spoiler?
No. Okay. You find all this out in like the first. This is the first act. I have only touched on the first act. It is nuts, and somehow it even, I wrote down, referencing Truffaut's Bastille's Volets. I'm going to say that name wrong, but somehow they're referencing like Truffaut films
so they're just
as
like
well.
talking about.
It's nuts.
Well, Lieberman is one of those guys who's really into like high-end cinema as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think you'd love it because it is a lot of fun. But my memory of it is that it's because anytime he tells his story, when Lieberman tells his stories of how these things inspired him, for him it was the idea of like being in New York City and going to the video store and basically like commenting on how there's all these people that are like zombies just like walking around trying to figure out what to do for the weekend, which is go home and watch something, and so.
Wow.
Video store culture is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Like a lot of it, especially the beginning, takes place at a video store. It's like, that's the basic like thrust of it is like, it's about video store culture, sort of, before it leads into this other like more ambitious idea.
Well, I was going to give him so much more credit with what I was about to say than just video store and people walking like zombies. I was about to say, this feels like a high-end, like 1950s reflection on the Cold War, and seeing it in the 1980s light feels really topical for the time period. Apparently, none of that is true.
Put her comment first, but then put Rob, and we'll.
Well, I don't know if I'm right.
No, and it definitely, because it is aliens and they're brainwashing people. It really does have this 1950s Cold War, but since it's in the 1980s, you kind of get that again. And so I was thinking that he was kind of bringing back, the whole like the outsiders, Mother Russia is coming to get us thing that we had going on in the 80s. I will now email Lieberman and just directly ask him.
That's right. Directors never know what their movies mean.
I was giving him a lot of credit on this one. He referenced Truffaut, so I figure it's a 50s Cold War reference.
Can I tell a funny Jeff Lieberman remote control story, which I hope he's not listening?
Possible.
Because he does sometimes.
He does.
No, I really like Jeff a lot. He's been on our show. He was on Killer POV.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we did a really great event at Jump Cut Cafe, your cafe, when it was open for Blue Sunshine, which is on the Blue Sunshine.
We're on.
It's on the
We're
Blu-ray.
on there.
I totally forgot we're on that whole Q&A.
And so at that point, I'd known him pretty well. And, he's got that kind of sarcastic New York humor. And I'm formerly from New York, so we kind of have that thing going. And so anyway, he was showing Remote Control at the New Beverly. It was on it was a double bill with Lady Terminator. So it was like an amazing night.
Great screening.
It was a great screening. And anyway, he was there for Remote Control, and he was selling copies of the Blu-ray and the disc. And I'm like, you know what? It's the only Jeff Lieberman movie I don't have. So I go up to him and I asked him, I was like, hey, I'd like to actually buy a Blu-ray. And he's like, for you got it. I'll just give it to you. And we had this kind of Larry David moment where he starts opening my Blu-ray to sign it, and I just don't like people signing my stuff anymore. And so I'm kind of like, do I stop him? Because like I kind of don't want him to sign it, but I'm so happy he's giving it to me, and I was willing to buy it if he wouldn't sign it. and so now I look at my collection and I think to myself, somebody wrote all over my remote control Blu-ray. I sense
Just
it.
somebody.
I see it.
I'll swap you, Rob, because I have it as well.
You have the Blu-ray?
I have the...
No, but it's too Rob G. I can't. It's terrible. It's not that bad, but I just thought it was hilarious that that's how I felt in the moment where he's like opening it up and trying to do this nice gesture for me. And I'm like, no, don't.
That's pretty funny.
Anyways, I love you, Jeff.
It's a fun film.
Anything else, anybody?
I got one more.
Yeah, I have
but
one
go
more
ahead.
too. Ciara came home. Ciara, if you listeners don't know, is my fiance. She's Filipino. She came home with DALAW, which is a Filipino horror film. She told me she was going to get me on the Filipino horror kick. She showed one of our first dates was watching a few. So this one,
Has she shown you the pregnancy one yet?
No.
Okay, I got to figure out the name of this one. It's very specific.
Right.
You'd know it if you saw it.
Yeah, this one is very much. It feels like Blumhouse Filipino horror.
How are you even spelling that?
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
DALAW?
It's DALAW. So naturally,
DALAW.
So yeah, she was like, "Oh, honey, I brought home this," and I was like, "DALAW," and she's like, "No, it's DALAW." And I was like, "All right, I'm still probably mispronouncing it." So,
okay, 2010. I got you. Okay.
Yeah. And 2010, dramatic supernatural horror film about a woman whose husband died. 3 years later, she remarries, but it turns out it's like kind of like that long lost love that she had when she was younger, but due to the insistence of her parents, she had to marry this other guy. And he died tragically. And so now that he's dead, she's like, well, I'm going to get back together with this guy. He's a little hunky. He's got a little bit of a history now. He's been around. So there's always this suspicion of, oh, my God, is my husband cheating on me or not? And while this is kind of tooling around in the back of her brain, her home becomes haunted. And she's like, oh, my God, it's my dead husband. He's really pissed that I remarried. What's going on? Luckily, she's got her mother-in-law there to kind of give her the lowdown on what might be going on supernaturally. She's got a neighbor next door who's got a wonky eye. She's got a pure white eye.
That's the clinical definition.
Wonky eye.
Wonky eye.
And what she does, and she holds her hand over her good eye, and she could see the supernatural with her other eye.
Whoa.
And I was like, that's something I could chew on. I love that aspect.
Yeah.
And I was like sitting there going, how can we work this into an Insidious? And I really, really love that
Don't
aspect.
admit that on
but
here.
No. There's some really, really good stuff in there. And I mean, like the acting's a little hokey, and I had to there's a lot of subtitling, which is fine. But you could still, the acting was fine. And I thought the casting was a little mismatched. I guess the lead actress is really famous in the Philippines. But she didn't seem right for the guy for some reason. Like, I don't know. Just like he seemed like super handsome and fresh off like a jeans ad. And it was just like, what? What's going on?
I got to tell you, on the IMDb page for DALAW, normally they have photos from the film. Like,
yes. What's on there?
These look like
publicity stills for the actors.
Like, it's very bizarre.
Yeah, check it out.
Like,
look at that.
her with like this handsome dude.
Yeah.
And then I guess that's the other dude.
That's the hunky. No, that's the main guy.
Oh, those are some hunky
guy,
dudes. And a Denny's ad.
Yes, he looks like he's fresh out. I mean,
There
like,
you go. And there's like her in a
listen.
room, kind of scared.
Yeah.
Despondent at best.
But I will say, I mean, there's a handful of scares that do work. The main ghost creature thing that's in there is just like covered in mud, so you never really see what it is. You can't get a read on it. But it was effective, even if it felt a little soap operatic. But it was also equally fun to watch it with my fiance, who would scream out in Tagalog every once in a while. And I'm like, what are you screaming? She's like, get the fuck out of there. And I was like, oh, okay.
And this is on Prime, Amazon Prime.
It is on Amazon Prime.
Wow, look at that.
DALAW.
DALAW.
Anyways, a very educational and fun experience. Oh, I'm looking at the IMDb page. It was released on Christmas Day in the Philippines.
Wow.
That's a big release.
So I'm looking forward to seeing some more of these. Actually, Ciara did take me to one at the Burbank 8, which is the one inside the
Where the
mall.
IKEA used to be? Or in the mall?
No, it's the one in the mall. And she took me to one, and I'm just going to read off.
They have bowling alley carpet.
I'm going to read. This is the one I saw theatrically. It was called The One That Ghost Away.
Oh.
And if you want to know, it's like one of it's like a Wayans Brothers send up of horror. So you actually have all of these kind of horror icons popping up through this kind of supernatural comedy, and they have like a riff on Samara.
Oh, okay.
And it's hilarious that when you first meet her, she's crawling out of the television, but she's so big she can't crawl. She can't pull herself out of the TV, and they have to help her.
Oh my god!
I was like, what
That's pretty funny.
wow. There's some really funny stuff in there, but it's very Wayans-esque humor in a scary movie. But anyways, it's been fun going through that.
Okay, well, I'll do one more. So I have been watching the Picnic at Hanging Rock TV show that is now streaming on Amazon Prime. And this, I had read not very good reviews about it, but I have been absolutely loving it. I'm on episode 4 now, and I'm really excited to get home and keep watching it. This is based off the true story from 1900 about 3 girls and their kind of governess, I'll say. It was a representative of their school who go in Australia. They go on this picnic. The girls decide to go hiking for a little bit, and they all vanish without a trace. And
it has some Aboriginal legend around the rocks themselves.
The rocks themselves are supposed to be really mystical. So it's the true story. And the TV show is based off the 1967 novel that was written about this. And then in 1975, Peter Weir made a movie. And this TV show is definitely hitting a lot different beats than the movie. It goes a lot more into the girls. It gets kind of even mean girlish, where it gets into like the girls' backstories and the cliques and who's with who and who's doing what and why the girls could have intention. It also gets a lot more into the town, the way that the school itself was viewed by the town, who the head mistress is and her backstory. And here's the cool part, and the reason that I am going to keep watching it. It is shot like fucking Stoker. It is the most beautiful thing I have seen probably since Stoker, where even just the basic act of like watching one of the girls eat a slice of watermelon, I'm just like, oh my God, this is the most decadent cinema I have seen in years. Stars Natalie Dormer, who I love. I loved her on Game of Thrones, and then she was in The Forest, which has...
I mean, you loved her. Does that mean she's no longer on the show? And
on Game of Thrones? Wasn't that like
spoilers?
5 seasons ago? That was like 5 seasons ago. Here, people, catch
She
up.
could still be around.
But I enjoyed her in The Forest, though the movie had its high and low points. I enjoy her as an actress. I'll say that. I didn't like The Forest that
We've resorted
much,
to barking on this show.
Barking, woof. But that said, I like Natalie Dormer. She was great on Game of Thrones. And so I actually am really, really liking her in this. And the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, this is just a feast for the eyes. It's like painted. And then I got really interested in the directors. And one of the main directors was the main director on Hannibal, which explains a lot as well.
Do you think they're going to, because to get me to watch this, I was saying to you before, I need it to show me something that, because the movie doesn't speculate to what happened to them at all. It's like they disappear and then you're dealing with the remnants of that for most of the movie, but it's somewhat sci-fi-ish, the music they put to it, but you don't see anything, which is in line with the mystery because no one really knows. But do you think they're going to posit an idea? Do you think they'll push
They're positing, I'm only on episode 4. So far, they're positing a lot. They are leaning hard
Aliens?
on the mystery. Yeah. There is like a mystical element because even in the first episode, when you're out there and you're watching the girls at the picnic, they're slowing down time. They're speeding it up at varying points. Like they're really playing with it, and you can't tell if that's just part of like this really badass cinematography that suddenly everything's moving in slow motion for 30 seconds. But then one of the girls will move at regular speed and seems to be aware of what's going on. So there's definitely things that they're playing with.
In the original and probably the story, I believe one of them returns.
I have not reached that point yet,
and she doesn't remember what happened. So that's the one of. I mean, in the movie.
In the movie.
So and I remember she's kind of like really attacked for like what did you do? What are you? I mean, the original movie is an amazing movie. It's not really a horror movie.
There is part of that because in this, 4 girls go out and then 3 vanish. So one is always there and has no memory of what went on. And so, that is kind of there
Sex
from
cult.
the get-go. Sex cult. But even just the different things that they set up and how they explored, it's just really fascinating so far. And it's short. It's only like, I want to say 6 episodes. It might be 7, but it's just, if you enjoyed watching Stoker or Hannibal, like it's worth it just to watch the portrait that they paint visually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a special guest, so we're going to take a break in a moment. Last thing I want to say, by the way, one of my acquisitions, Zombieology. Enjoy yourself tonight. Crazy Chinese movie. It's on Amazon Prime now. Please check it out. I think it's really fun and crazy. I know people keep asking me, but what if I have zombie fatigue? Yes, I understand, but this is bonkers Asian cinema at its finest, and I know that not a lot of you have seen it yet, so please watch it on Amazon Prime.
Zombieology.
Because
Also,
now it feels free.
That documentary that I think you guys have both brought up before on the Hellraiser disc, part 1 of that great Hellraiser documentary is now on Shudder. And I just watched it last night, and that's remarkable.
What's the name of it again?
I did not write that part down. I wrote Hellraiser Documentary Part 1.
Okay.
I think it's Leviathan.
Leviathan. That's correct.
It was excellent.
Yeah, it's really good.
I mean, no Clive, but everyone else is involved, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
I did want to just quickly. Sorry to ruin your outro because I know we're not going to get to talk about.
It was a really good outro.
It was a really good outro. I like to undo most of Rob's good work. There's a crazy movie called Horsehead. I was curious. The reason I wanted to know if anyone had seen it.
Yeah.
Looking at Graham. No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's that.
Yes. I saw the fantastic.
Yeah. There's that. There's a releasing company called Artsploitation. It should tick all my boxes, but it does not. But it is interesting. Catriona Macaulay from all of the great Fulci, basically the trilogy of Fulci films and Inferno. She plays the mom, so it's really cool to see her, and it's basically an ode to Fulci and Argento. Like and to the point where it's too much an ode to them, and a lot of fast cutting and those kind of movies. Whenever I see people cut too much in a movie where you're meant to be drawn into like the mysterious, I'm always like, guys, long takes pull you in. All these edits are just the kind of, you have to save for when it's necessary.
Never even heard of this.
No, and the only reason there's a couple different people have recommended. Chris from Horror Trivia and Chris, producer Chris, he had said there's a couple shots that something I'd written that reminded him. He said, and I totally know what he's talking about. It's got some really interesting imagery, really interesting moments. Basically, a young girl comes home to a really strange family relation dynamic with her mom, and then starts finding out the mother had this really intense, bad relationship with the father, who may or may not still be some sort of specter. Honestly, it's one of those movies where I could not recount the plot of this movie because it's so confused.
Fever dream,
yeah, for sure. But one thing that is interesting about it is, if anyone's, because I know a lot of people try to write these kind of scripts, it's about lucid dreaming. It's not just using lucid dreaming, it's a girl who's learned how to do lucid dreaming from books so she can go into these dreams and position herself to have more power. So it's really, I think if you're really into art, horror, cinema, you might find this interesting.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
on
think
Amazon
it completely
Prime
works.
as well.
Yeah, I just watched it last night, and I mostly wanted to bring up because I want to know if anyone here had seen it, because I don't feel like we've talked about it before. But
I mean, like it was. I think Sam Zimmerman and I saw it at Fantastic Fest many years ago. I mean, Romaine Bassett's got a really great eye.
Yeah, visually.
But narratively speaking, it's not my cup
it's
of
like
tea.
it's the not as good version of like Dark Water.
Yeah.
Similar kind of things where they're doing this art piece horror, but Dark Water works better as a movie
Was
to me.
Sam into it?
Of course.
Okay, I was going to say, because that sounds
I'm
like a
shocked
Sam
it's not on
Zimmerman.
Shudder.
I'm pretty
It felt
sure.
like a Shudder thing that would be on Shudder. It's not quite as bonkers as a Graham Skipper film, but it's pretty awesome.
Hey
Speaking of
guys,
Graham
Skipper. Graham Skipper. Not as good of an outro as Rob did, but we'll take it. Graham Skipper.
I was trying my best.
Horsehead bookends.
Hey, guys.